Greetings, fiddlers! Feel the air warming up and things are starting to turn green and buds are popping and all kinds of amazing things are happening in the natural world to let us know that there is some action coming on with the the approach of a new season. So that is one of the wonderful things that is happening. With that in mind, the approaching of spring, I wanted to talk about the idea of approach notes. And this would be like kickoff notes if you were kicking off a tune in bluegrass or a fiddle tune or something like that. There's all kinds of ways to just play the first few notes to get you in to a fiddle tune or a bluegrass tune. And bluegrass fiddle kickoffs are up on the site, and you can go down the list and learn them all, and by the time you've finished, you will know something about bluegrass fiddle and be able to kick off a lot of standard tunes, and people will know what you're kicking off, and it will be very cool. So that's great, but what if we wanted to vary just the first 2 or 3 notes of the kickoff? That's perfectly legal. So I thought I'd just take a lick and just vary, think of all the different ways that I could play the first 3 or 2 beats, leading into the first tune. So here would be a sample lick. This would be like something that I would kick off, and I'm going to do it in A. I'm just going to do everything in the key of A, and we might wind up wanting to do all this stuff in the key of G or in D, or I want just an example, kind of a generic bluegrass fiddle kickoff. Right, and we could go in any direction from there. But what I'm really interested in is those first 3 notes, and then we hit the 1. So I kind of got into the idea of like, well, how many different ways can you begin the tune before you hit that E note? That's always going to be the same. Bum, 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 ba, right? And all the different variations that we could have with approaching, right? So we could cut down the number of notes. We could say 1, 2, 3, right? Or we could do kind of a chromatic approach. You've heard this before. It sounds like a banjo lick. 1, 2, 3. It's just slightly different from, right? Or we could come from above. We could go 1, 2, 3. Right? Or we could come from farther below. 2, 3. So all these different little micro variations, and I could go on. Let's see how many different ways I can lead up to that E note from, for instance, the note E. I'm going to go, right? So that, I just did that. So let's try starting from that same note. Try a couple of different ways. So I could go 1, 2, 3. Right? I could do that. I could add, just make double note, or I could make them all notes. Right? So there's 2 sets of 8th notes. Or I could make them all 8th notes. Or I could do, right? Now that's interesting because I didn't start on the E. I started on the 2, 3. Okay, what if I started a bunch of licks on the F? How about 1, 2, 3? Or how about 1, 2, 3? Or how about 1, 2, 3? Or how about 1, 2, 3? Right? Well, I could go on, but these are cool because instead of just starting every approach, every kickoff with like, there's a lot of ways you can do that to keep yourself interested and keep the rest of the band interested. And how about if I started, well, let's see, I started a bunch on the E, I started a bunch on the F sharp. I guess the next one would be G sharp, right? 1, 2, 3. Or how about 1, 2, 3? That's kind of interesting. Or how about, okay, how about starting on A? What was that? 2, 3. That's kind of nice. That almost sounds like a banjo lick, right? What if I started in B? 2, 3. From a 1, 2, 3. That's kind of nice. What if I started in? How about 1, 2, 3? Or all the way up to B. That's about as far as I can go without leaving first position. 1, 2, 3. Right? That's kind of cool. Not quite as good as. How about? That works really well. That sounds like a fiddle tune. 1, 2, 3. Or how about something like really fancy? 1, 2, 3. All triplets. That is scary. That what did I just do? Let's see. So, and then I'm using my fourth finger, and then going straight to the F sharp. Hi, Mom. Look what I just did. Right? Got to work on that. That's I could do it that way. It doesn't sound that good with separate bows. That sounds good. That sounds like a Texas fiddle-y. So, just kind of going through and maybe even jotting down a couple of the ones that you might like the most can really open up your just playing the very first few notes of the tune. It can be such an interesting way of, opening the tune, giving everybody kind of a new, fresh kind of idea about how to start. It's kind of all these different ways of doing approach notes, and of course you can do these in any key. You do that. That sounds good. I'm exhausted just thinking about all these notes, all these approach notes. In fact, I think I'm going to approach a nap pretty soon after all that thinking. Hope you guys are having fun fiddling and keeping your spirits up by thinking about spring and fiddling and putting those together. You get something pretty nice. All right.